where my brain is sometimes. Went on this bush walk. I was all excited about taking this bush hike. So when I was still planning my trip to Australia and was in the States planning it, I saw these excellent ratings on a bush hike that lasted all day through the Blue Mountains, and the tour guide was an Aborigine. So the pictures looked amazing. I thought it looked awesome. I'm thinking, great, I'm not a hiker, let me say from the outset. So get on the train and go forever on this train out into the middle of nothingness. And get off the train and there's nothing anywhere. It's in the middle of nowhere, outside of Sydney, out into the mountains. And I'm thinking, this is odd, and all of a sudden this guy comes walking out of the woods, and he's like, okay, come on then. And so we head down these steep inclines, and what I didn't realize when I was in the United States is it was an advanced hike for advanced, experienced hikers. And I'm not a hiker, don't know anything about hiking. The hills that we climbed down were like mountain type hills with rugged terrain, no trails. So the first thing that happened was I go slipping all the way down one of the hills, and I grabbed this leafy looking big plant to try to keep from falling down because I'm on this incline. It stopped my fall, but it felt like my hand was then on fire. I don't know what the hell it was. And we get deeper and deeper into the vegetation, and we're going and going, and he's like, just be very careful, because if you fall or anything, there's no way for us to get you out. And then, I mean, it was amazing. The first part I loved. It was beautiful. Even though it was winter, it was still hot. It was like in the 70s or, no, it was hotter than that, 80s or 90s. And he's giving me all this, like, stuff that he's picking off trees, and he's like, this is bush tucker, eat this, and put this up your nose. And like an idiot, I do everything he tells me. And I'm thinking, you know, what if this guy is some psycho that just wandered out of the wilderness, and he isn't even like the guide, and he's telling me to stick poisonous plants up my nose and stuff, and I'm just doing it. So anyway, halfway through I fell off a log into a stream and fractured my leg. So the rest of the trip I was on hands and knees up and down the hills. When I got out back to the train station, I was black, covered in mud, sweat, disgusting. It was actually frightening because I thought that they were going to have to get a helicopter in to lift me out. Whole new respect for the Aboriginal people. He walked those trails like he was bouncing, like he was gliding on air. Not any effort. I'm like, so amazing experience. The first part, second part, not so much. I was petrified. I did end up getting for my souvenir of Australia, genuine kangaroo scrotum beer bottle opener. That's ballin'. So the pictures from the slideshow, the stuff that he had me sticking up my nose, that turned out to be eucalyptus. Aids in if you have sinus problems or help in breathing. It's a natural decongestant. The stuff he had me chewing on, those leaves, I don't know what that was, but it tasted like double mint gum. It was weird. It was like that minty flavor, and they use it to aid thirst, the Aboriginal peoples. The picture of the stone carving, that was an Aboriginal stone carving actually along the trail that was hundreds of years old of the kangaroo. And then the shot in the trees of those things hanging, those were frickin' bats, and they were as big as small dogs, and they were all over out in the countryside in Australia. You would see them hanging in the trees just everywhere. The trees were full of them. Some of the weirdest animals down there that I have ever seen, never seen anything like them. So I just wanted to say, in the first video, the intro to this series, I incorrectly stated the perfumier of Smell of Freedom, and each of the component parts is Mark Constantine Mark and Mo were the founders of Lush, and actually the perfumier behind the Smell of Freedom series is Simon, his son. Can't stand when I make an inaccurate statement and pass on incorrect information to you guys, so I put a disclaimer in the other video, and also wanted to explain who the perfumier is. Okay, so check out my intro to the series video. I go more into the history behind the making of this, the Smell of Freedom, how there are 3 fragrances that are put into this that are distinct fragrances on their own. And the one that we'll be talking about tonight is part 1, which is 30% of the Smell of Freedom fragrance, and that is Fire Tree, part 1. So they're broken into thirds, and each one is put into the Smell of Freedom to come up with one fragrance, but each stands as a fragrance on their own. The story basically is that each of these 3 represent individuals or a culture slash peoples who have overcome adversity and persecution and come out on the other side to live happy, productive lives. So Fire Tree is the Australian Aboriginal portion, and basically deals with the persecution of the Aboriginal peoples. It reminds me kind of similar to the plight of the American Indian peoples, and the stories of each just, it makes my heart hurt. So Fire Tree, the Aboriginal peoples are real big, and I learned this on the walk that I went on, the bushwalk. They're real big on Dreamtime stories and legend, kind of like the American Indian people also. And the Fire Tree, which this fragrance is named after, is a magical tree that gives Aboriginals light and fire, and it plays a big role in their Dreamtime stories. The actual Fire Tree, they're also called grass trees. They're hundreds of years old. They've lived through the urbanization of modern cities. They've lived through bushfires that swept the Australian landscape. So kind of like the Aboriginal peoples, despite destruction and adversity, they're still there, and they're still beautiful, and they still flower. For the grass tree or the fire tree, it represents kind of a rebirth, or a tree rising from the ashes with new shoots and flowers. And actually fire causes the trees to bloom. So in this fragrance, it's actually a jojoba oil based fragrance. So it comes in the little shaker top, so we're not talking about an alcohol based fragrance. It's pure jojoba oil with oil based fragrance extracts that are added. So in the jojoba oil, there's lemon myrtle oil, bergamot oil, fire tree oil, and orange flower absolute. With this, it wears differently because it is an oil, so you have to wear it a little bit differently. A couple of shakes from the top of this and just rub it into your skin. I would say maybe one on each wrist and one behind each ear on your pulse points, and maybe one to your neck. It's not an overwhelming scent. It's not real strong, not cloying. The biggest thing that hits you with this is the lemon myrtle oil. That lemony smell is very dominant. It settles down a little bit, and then you get more or less an orangey citrus feel from it. It's flowery a bit. So that orange flower comes out, but the biggest part of this one is the lemon. And I can definitely pick out in this the actual fire tree portion, although it isn't the biggest player. What is interesting is because this is a little bit sweeter and more floral, when it actually goes into this and it's blended in thirds, the Oud Heart and Old Delhi Station being the other two, that this part isn't completely overpowered by the other two, because we all know how strong that oud base is in a lot of fragrances. And you would think with something that's kind of citrusy and light and fruity like the fire tree scent, that it would be eclipsed by the oud, but instead it's supported by it, and you still pick up notes of it. So very interesting scent, easy to wear. I would say it's a spring, summer scent. yeah, when you think of Australia and the landscape and everything out there, you think more, I don't know, I think more something like Lair du Desert Marocain by Tower, just the dryness and, but this is actually kind of light, floral, a little bit fruity and citrusy. It's nice, very nice fragrance. It would be good for spring and summer. The projection is not great, it's light. Longevity is fantastic because it is an oil-based fragrance, so it lasts on the skin a long time. It's not cloying at all, so it's not overbearing. It's just a light, beautiful fragrance, and definitely something you should check out. Unfortunately, this is kind of hard to come by. It's only available on the Lush website, not available in store. And I don't believe they offer samples of it, so it's more or less a blind buy. Real nice, guys. So if you have any questions about the first part, just let me know in the comments section. The second part of the series is coming up, so don't miss it. See you later. Let me know what you think. Have a good night. Take care.